afternoon and welcome back to Transforming the Community, brought to you by CRA Nottingham, powered by Voxnet Solution Limited and sponsored by the National Lottery Community Fund. My name is Blessing. I'm a psychiatric nurse with a learning disability background, and today I am your host. So today we shall be talking about the myths and realities of mental illnesses and the untold truth about mental health in the Black community. I have a few people with me on the panel, but before we begin with the introductions, I would like to introduce our pastor, Ibukunle, who would open up our session with a word of prayer.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for logging in again for this program. I want to thank all the invited guests who will be talking to us on the mental health issues during this COVID period. Can we have a short prayer? Heavenly Father, we want to say thank you for this wonderful day. Thank you for all your children who have shown interest to be part of this program. Thank you for everyone that has logged in from all over the world to be part of this program. Father, we pray that at the end of the program, a lot of us would have been, our understanding of mental health issues and the horizon would have been broadened in Jesus' name. Thank you, Heavenly Father, for in Jesus' name we have prayed. Amen. Thank you. God bless.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to begin with some introductions, and we shall begin with the people that we have with me here on the panel. So starting from my left, do you want to say your name and what your role is and your profession?
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Olasumbo Lawson James. I'm a nurse by background, adult nursing.
Yeah, thank you. And to my left?
Yeah, my name is Jeremy Mesa, a postgraduate mental health student at University of Nottingham.
Right, so we've got a student nurse with us here as well. And online joining with us virtually, we've got Gloria, who is also a psychiatric nurse with also a learning disability background. She will be joining us today as well, giving us some perspectives of mental health. And also we've got Lydia and Tosin, who are going to be sharing their experiences with us today. So thank you very much for joining us. I really, really do appreciate. So now we're going to go into the session, but before we go on, I feel it's important for us to sort of give a background into mental health and mental illnesses and what it is for the sake of the people who may not know exactly what it is and what the difference is. So I'm going to begin by asking Gloria, is there a difference between mental health and mental illness? Because people can use it interchangeably sometimes. So just to clarify, so everyone's aware, do you think that there is a difference between mental health and mental illnesses?
Yes, I would say definitely they're very different. Mental illness, obviously, as we know, you may not know, because obviously we very much.
Sorry, Gloria, I don't think we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Better.
I speak up, sorry. So I believe that there is definitely a difference between mental health and having a mental illness. The clear difference is that a mental illness would, be the state of well-being in which an individual realizes their own potential. So mental health is where an individual would sort of realize their well-being, in which their potential, or how they cope, or their normal stresses of life, or work, maybe work productivity and fruitfulness, are able to maybe contribute with their community. However, mental illness, I believe, is sort of a range of conditions that nurses, doctors, consultants use bandage, diagnose with, for instance, depression, anxiety, PTSD, and why specialise in disorders, and that is the clear difference.
Well, I think you've cut off now, Gloria. Sorry, is it possible to use earphones? Because I think you keep breaking up.
I don't think my earphones don't connect to my laptop, so I don't know.
Right, okay. So whilst Gloria is still trying to fix that, so and for those who didn't hear what Gloria said, so Gloria has said that there is a difference between mental health and mental illnesses. Now, she was talking about mental health as a general term for, everyone has mental health. The same way you have your physical health, you have your emotional health, but not everyone has a mental illness. So I'm going to ask Sumba on the stage with me, has this changed your perspective of what this means, or have you always thought the same as well?
For me, mental health and mental illness is quite different, because mental health is the ability to overcome your emotions, the ability to control your social connections, your thinking abilities is your mental well-being. Yeah. And mental illness is the illness, when you have lost part of the abilities of your thinking process, of your actions, of your attitude in total, and your outward person, it becomes a mental illness. But your mental well-being is having the ability to control your emotions.
Yeah. What about you, from the perspective of a student, who has just started their training? Has this always been a thought that's crossed your mind, or has this always been known to you?
There's more clarification now since I started this training, because now, before I would have used it interchangeably, but I know the difference. Like they have all said, mental health is the well-being, how you can cope and contribute to your normal life and to your local environment. While the illness is the conditions you're suffering from, either the depression or the anxiety, yeah, or, and of course, would have followed through the normal assessment process.
Yeah. I hope this has put this into a bit of perspective for those who may have had a misunderstanding about what mental health is and mental illness is. So I'm going to move on then to Lydia. Can you please tell us your experience of a challenge that you've had that's led to a challenge in your mental health, and whether or not this has led to a mental illness?
Good afternoon, everyone. Hope you can hear me well. Hello?
Yeah.
I hope you can hear me.
Yeah, we can.
Okay. The only instance I can really bring up, because I work in mental health, but I'm IT, so I don't really have interaction with patients or anything like that, but I know staff that do and so forth. So this time last year, I would say, I was expecting my second child. I was about 3, maybe 4 months pregnant, and in January, I just started bleeding. I was at work, normal day, no problem. I just started bleeding, and then I went to the hospital. They said that the midwives couldn't really see anything, so I had to go to QMC, to the ABC, I think, ward. That's more the antenatal emergency. So I went there, they checked, and they said that I had something called an incompetent cervix. The incompetent cervix is where your cervix starts weakening before it's time. Then obviously, then have the show, which I had the show. Then after you have the show, then your waters go, then obviously you give birth. But at this time, I was only 4 months pregnant. It was way too early. So I was in hospital for a while. I was in hospital for about 4 weeks, 5 weeks maybe. And in February last year, we lost the baby. Obviously my waters broke and the baby just wouldn't hold. So we lost the baby. At this point, I was going through mental breakdown, but I wasn't aware that I was actually going through a mental breakdown. So my midwives and the bereavement nurses and all the services within the hospital told me, you're going to go through certain emotions. Now, me going through those emotions, they told me it was actually normal, because it is a normal feeling. Every loss is different for every woman. And obviously, I can't compare mine to anybody else's loss. So I went through a lot of turmoil, as in I was falling apart. I was at home. I was cleaning frantically. I was just crying. I had anxiety. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't talk to anybody. But thank God my husband had noticed this pattern that was actually happening. I was quite aggressive to my little girl. And me being aggressive, not in a sense of that I want to be aggressive. I was just being aggressive because that was the feeling that I was going through due to the loss. I had a lot of stress. I didn't want to go outside. If I went outside, I felt like people were looking at me thinking, oh, there's something wrong with me. So I didn't leave my house in over 2 or 3 months. I couldn't leave my house. My husband noticed the pattern of what was going on. I was very aggressive towards my little girl. I was aggressive towards him. I was just really very much depressed, I'll say. And he then took my daughter to my mother's house. He sat me down. Let's talk about this situation. So we started talking about it, and it kind of alleviated that pressure of feeling kind of like I'm a disappointment. Maybe even the word pathetic is probably the correct word. I couldn't go to work. So work already knew, because obviously I'm in the mental health sector, they gave me support through work, as in they tried to give me support with occupational health, as in trying to come back, even though it wasn't work related, it was personal, but they were trying to give me that support. And then I had also contact with the bereavement nurses at Nottingham University. They were very supportive. My husband spoke to me about it and explained that he was here to support me. But little did I know, he himself was also going through the exact same thing. Just because I carried the child and I actually lost the baby, a lot of people tend to forget about their father. They always put them aside. They always think about the mother, which is normal. And talking about it, especially in the Black community, it is very, very difficult, as in you always feel like people will judge you. And it's not that they will, but you always feel like you're being judged. Some people will tell you it's because you didn't look after yourself, or it's because you didn't do this. And sometimes when you're going through a loss, it's not a case of you did anything wrong. Just sometimes it happens, maybe God's will was not for me to have the child at the time. Because I'm in the faith, I had to understand that sometimes things happen and God's created a plan for me that He already seen it, maybe something that I couldn't handle, hence the reason why we had the loss for the child. So that gave me some level of comfort. Then I had my husband, who was very comforting, even though he was struggling himself, he was very comforting. And then I spoke to a psychologist on a regular basis. On a regular basis, I had counseling. So the counseling was very helpful. And to some people, especially in the Black community, again, they would think that, oh, you don't need to see anybody to tell them your problems. It's not the case that I'm telling my problems, just somebody that I don't know. It feels like there's no judgment from that person. So there's a lot of support out there. And then a lot of people told me went through the same thing. A few of my friends went through the same losses, but they never had support. And some of them have really crumbled and really struggled quite a lot. So I'm now at the point where, with all the support and help that I had through work, through the NHS, through my friends, through my family, it's made me confident enough to even come and talk about it and have a conversation with people and tell the world that sometimes things happen that you can't control and it's not necessarily your fault, but there is support and help out there. Seek that support, seek that help, because that help, it will take you very far and it will make you feel it will give you a little bit of comfort to know that there's so many people that go through the exact same thing and not a lot of people come through it. And a lot of people will mask it through doing other things, like maybe drinking, even taking drugs, and even trying to commit suicide. It's a very daunting thing. And when you don't understand that your world's going to be turned upside down, when you've never gone through something like that, it's very, very difficult. But I'm just thankful that I've had a lot of support, even People from church came to see me. A lot of them came and spent hours with me on the ward, just talking to me. So it was very comforting. And some people were telling me some of the stories they've also gone through. So it was very, very comforting. And me, I would recommend support and opening up and telling people your story, because the more people you tell, you'll be surprised how many people will then try and put some form of prevention in place. Because if a lot of people that I spoke to, if they told me that they had like incompetent cervix, like I explained, that my cousin went through the same thing, if she had told me that, maybe that would have been something I would have taken up with my doctor and said, oh, this has happened to my relative. Is it something that could also happen to me? But again, it's hindsight, and then you learn. Yeah, that's my story.
Thanks, Lydia, for sharing. I'm so sorry about your loss. And you mentioned some things that seem to be some misconceptions in the Black community, and that's some of the things that we shall be dealing with today on the show. But I just wanted to ask you very quickly, it seems like you did have access to a lot of support, but is it something that you felt you were able to deal with on your own, or did you know to access the support if not for the recommendations from the people around you and your husband?
It was, for me, it was me being open-minded, not having this, I had to be open-minded in the sense that I had to get myself together for my own sanity and my own mental health, and also me having a 2-year-old at the time, he seeing me go through that will be very difficult. And I don't want my daughter growing up too quickly and not thinking that there's no support out there. Aside my family and my friends in church, aside that, being given leaflets in the hospital. Oh, there's bereavement nurses, there's groups, there's support groups, there's a Miscarriage Association UK, where you have so many contacts, so many people that you can speak to without it, because if I wasn't open-minded, I wouldn't have taken that support. And that's just me being honest. But I had to understand that I had to get myself to some level of sanity for myself, first and foremost, in order for me to be able to be a wife to my husband, a mother to my daughter, a daughter to my parents, a friend to my friends. So even though it's difficult saying it now, at the time it was very difficult, and I had to be very open-minded. And I also recommended the same support for my husband, and him having also that level of contact with the bereavement nurse was also supportive towards him. So it hasn't happened again. We gave birth to a bouncing, beautiful little boy in April. So it hasn't happened again, but I'm very grateful that I was able to come out of it quickly, identify with the triggers, and listen to what the midwife was telling me and the bereavement nurses, what they were telling me, really helped. So even if you don't have family, there's a lot of support out there within your NHS, even at work sometimes they do have that level of support.
Thank you very much, Lydia. I'm glad you were able to get the support that you needed at the time. But we would like to hear from Tosin. Can you tell us your experience and how this had an impact on your mental health and whether or not this led to a mental illness?
Okay, good afternoon. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. So my story or my experience is that back in March, on the 11th of March, actually 9 months ago, I lost my dad. And I think it was quite sudden because he was ill, but it was just like that normal illness. You don't think the person is going to die. But prior to that, I just gave birth to my first child 6 weeks ago. And having been a new mom, going through all of that emotions, then having to lose your dad in the process, it was very, very challenging. But I also didn't know that I was going through things, because I remember when my mom was leaving for the airport, leaving back to Nigeria, she kept saying to me, you need to be strong for your son. You need to be strong for your son. So in that moment, I think I just withdrew from the grief. I kind of put a stop to it just to try to be there for my son, because this was, a couple of weeks back, my dad was doing fine. He was good. He was always calling, asking for pictures and videos, wanting to see the baby. And then next thing is like, oh, daddy is not feeling fine. And we thought, my dad can be dramatic. If he has a cold, the whole world needs to know he has a cold. So we just thought it was that way, like, oh, daddy's just being extra. And now, oh, he has cold. Just go and take paracetamol. You know what to do. Stop being extra. And we didn't know that it was going to lead to death because it was just so sudden. Because even in that moment, my mom's best friend's brother was also ill, and my mom was there consoling somebody else. Oh, your brother will be fine, not to worry. It's not like she wasn't concerned about my dad, but we just thought that is extra. That is going to get well soon enough. But then he passed on, and it's just like, wow. How do I cope with this? How do I handle this situation? I have a baby that I have to care for. My mom has just left. My dad is never going to come back. What am I going to do? When the time of COVID, you can't go out. So you're going to just go and be sort of like a human being, kind of go out, get some fresh air, even go shopping or whatever the case may be. I could not do that. And then at the same time, a few months after, I also had like a personal issue with me personally. So I was just in this phase of, I think I would say almost denial. And then I also chose to speak to someone. So I got a therapist. And just like Lydia said, in the Black community and the Christian faith, it's almost like a no, almost like a taboo. Like, oh, why would you go and speak to someone? Or what is enough for you? Yeah, what is enough for us? Definitely. But speaking to somebody who doesn't know your situation, I found that it really helped me just to, get a different perspective as to things that was going on. Because, after speaking to the person, and she told me, you have delayed grief. But I didn't even know that because to me, I just thought, okay, cry when you want to cry, and you just need to get help. Like, no, the baby's not going to change himself. He's not going to feed himself. You have to do all these things. So I think for me, it was more of life has to move on. But you still know that is dead. But what can you? I don't even have to explain it. What can you do? Sometimes my husband speaks to me. I'm like, I don't even know how to grieve because I don't know. Is there a right way? If I'm crying, am I crying too much? If I'm not crying, is there something wrong with me? So I think for me, it was just that confusion as to how do I handle everything that is going on around me. Just having a baby and then losing my dad and then family issues. It was just a whole lot. But I think speaking to the therapist I spoke to, it really, really helped me because I found out that those days in the days I was meant to speak to her, it got me excited to kind of express myself, have my husband there also share his own experience about, how I'm grieving and how he's grieving. Also, as Lydia said, for me, I didn't realize that my husband too was grieving because for me, it's like, it's my dad that died. It's not your dad is alive. You could pick up the phone and call him. So I sort of was having how will I put it, resentment towards my husband. Sometimes he will ask me, how are you doing? And I'll just be upset. I'm fine. Can't you see I'm fine? Why are you asking me that question? But I forgot he also had a relationship with my dad too. Speaking to the therapist that we spoke to, it did help us. It did help me. Sort of move on. You can never forget it, but you just try to start moving forward with your life basically. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing, Tosin. Thank you. And again, sorry for your loss. And it was really, 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 really good that you opened up about how you were feeling and you were able to access the support that you received. And bereavement, sometimes when we go through bereavement, all the emotions that we feel is a normal, process, a natural feeling that we get when we experience loss. But how long do you think that experience lasted for? Was it something that you were able to cope with on your own, or did you need the help of professionals to help you with that process? Is it something that you still have to access till date? How did you cope with that over time?
I think for me, it's something that I would still want to access till date. It's something that I feel like it doesn't stop. And if I feel like I need to speak to somebody, I think I would go and find that help. Initially, when I didn't speak to anyone initially, it wasn't easy, obviously. I don't think I could have done it on my own because you want to be this superwoman, you want to be a super mom and super this, but there's just one you. There's so much that you can do. And I didn't think that I could have done that because I got to a point whereby I just didn't want to do anything. Like I'll put on the TV and it's just like nothing. I'll put it off. I'll pick up my phone. I'll turn it off. At some point, I even deleted Instagram, deleted Facebook because I was just like, I just shut down. You know, I was just there. I could not care if I was living in a mess. I did not clean, to cook, like literally. God bless the kind of husband that that I have right now. Because to even eat, I'm the kind of person, if I drink water and eat biscuit, I'm fine. So I didn't even care about what my husband was going to eat or anything because I was not even cooking. I wasn't doing anything. I was just there, waking up, sleeping, and just, oh, my dad is dead, my dad is dead, my dad is dead. But, I think when I then finally sought help, it made me understand that it's fine for you to grieve. That feeling, that emotion you're going through, it's okay. But at the same time, as harsh as it may sound, you can't live in the past. You can't just stay there. You have to sort of find a way to move on. I think that's what made me start thinking about things. I have a baby that I want to experience life with. I don't want to just be there and he goes on to say, oh, because you lost your dad, you couldn't be a good mom to me. But I just thought, I need to pick myself up again. I just start moving things. But if I did not get that help, I think I would have struggled a lot more than I did because, as I said, it was in the time of the pandemic. I couldn't maybe have friends come around the way I probably wanted, or maybe my friends also didn't know how to breathe with me or hop around me or something. But I honestly kind of felt a bit lonely in that time. But I think the baby helped me, and also my husband also helped me.
Thank you so much, Tosin. I'm glad to hear that. So moving on, I would like to hear from Gloria, please. Have you got any tips or any specific practical coping mechanisms that you can give for those with mental illnesses? Tips and practical strategies on how they can cope with the illness. Sorry, Gloria, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can. If you maintain that volume, we can make do.
So what I was saying is, I see that.
Maybe she needs to increase the volume a bit.
Sorry, Gloria, are you able to, I'm so sorry. Are you able to move closer to your speaker, to your speaker microphone? I don't know if you're using a headset or something.
I'm not using a headset. Can you hear me now?
Better.
Better. So I'm just going to have to move back. So what I was saying is it's quite a hard question because everybody's different. So, what might help me, my many years being really does, it really is down to trial and error. And I think, personally, I know that for me, it would be a hobby to get my mind off and but then again, some people might not know how to say begin. So, really, it's down to individual just finding that thing, whatever way you're comfortable doing that. But I do believe that seeking professional help is another thing that, that, especially in that community, when,
Yeah, I can just,
and it's just not really spotting when either a family member that you can't hear me.
Quite low.
Can't hear me.
You're quite low, Gloria.
Yeah, I don't know I'm not too sure what's going on. I can't have my laptop really high.
Yeah, so whilst you're still trying to sort that out, Gloria, apologies for that. You're just a bit low at the moment. So we're just going to move on to the next. Whilst you're still trying to sort out the volume, that's okay. So I'm going to move on to Simba now. I know you're from a general perspective, but I know you also work with patients whose mental health needs are secondary to their physical health needs. So have you seen any, because I would imagine you probably have mental health professionals coming to the hospital to support your patients as well. So have you seen any tips that you can also recommend that you use with your patients? Any tips that any mental health professionals have shared with the general nurses that you can also give on this platform?
I'll first of all start with my background first. For me, it's we have a physical, the hospital looks after patients with physical needs, which is the primary issue why the patients are being admitted and is overcoming the mental health needs. For us, our mental health patients on the ward, we do have mental health nurse who comes regularly to do assessments. We do have organizations as well who comes as extras to, speak to the patients and, teach them their coping mechanisms, even though they still have the physical conditions. And for some of them, they have to go for assessments out of the hospital and being readmitted. For some of them, they have to be transferred to the Mental Health Institute. And for some, it's just treating the illness with medications as assessed, and diagnosed.
Yeah. Thanks so much for that. And from a student's perspective, what can you tell about strategies and coping mechanisms? Because I would imagine that there will be a lot of resources and materials that are normally given to you firsthand to use with your patients.
The tips I have actually in general, for example, you need to sleep well, because when you sleep well, the brain, the hormones that regulate your emotions, how you feel, has the ability to do that when you are sleeping.
Yeah.
So if you don't sleep well, you get aggravated, you are anxious. So sleeping is very important. Exercises.
Yeah.
When you exercise, the hormones that activate your well-being, your emotions that make you feel good, they're also activated. You need to eat well. You need to interact. That interaction, be involved in activities that happen in your locality. You can even decide to volunteer. You have issues like that, volunteer in your environment, help others. It gives you self-worth. So you want to become part of the society. So those things happen, they help you increase the self-worth. And most of the time, when you interact with that, you hardly have issues of mental health. You also need to speak up. Ask for help. If you feel you are not feeling okay, you should be able to talk to someone about it. For both of their stories, what I could see from there, apparently, was that they were still at the level where they still had capacity. So they knew they had to do something. So they were compliant enough to make sure they assisted, or rather, compliant enough to agree to the support that were advised. Because if you have gone beyond that level and gone to the acute level, where we say, for example now, schizophrenia, once you go, it goes deeper down, you will not have that capacity. So you have your immediate family, in the case of a child, your parents, acting on your behalf. But if you are an adult, someone else had to act on your behalf. But they were still in that stage that was still reversible. So I think those tips, we should take them seriously. Get active, do what you love doing. If it's music, you're thinking in that bad mood, get up, dance, do something you enjoy. So those tips actually help.
Yeah, thanks, Jerome. I think you mentioned some very important tips, because sometimes when you have conditions that overlap, such as your physical health and your mental health, sometimes to be able to deal with your mental illness effectively, you have to deal with the issues that you're facing with your physical health. And so for issues like sleep, for instance, if you're having difficulty sleeping, there are always remedies that can help with your sleep, such as taking medication, focusing on your sleep hygiene, you know, getting active and doing the things that, you know, you love doing. And sometimes there are also therapeutic ways that you can use to sort of like get you going again. So thanks very much for sharing. That's very useful. So moving on to my next question, I'm going to ask you, Simba, because I know you're from a general nurse perspective, and you also deal with loss and bereavement. And the stories that we've heard on the panel today are more coming from a perspective of bereavement. So I'm going to ask, what kind of questions do you ask, or do you not ask someone who is going through a difficult situation like loss or bereavement?
Well, I want to compliment Lydia and Tosin for sharing the stories, because that was really brave. In taking it back to my work, it's a in fact, it's the hardest part of my job, especially with my position. We're having to sit families down, you know, having that terrible, I call it terrible conversation, to tell them we're stopping all treatments for their relatives, or their family was going to die, or their family had actually died. For us, from time to time, we have to undergo training and counseling. It's not in-depth, but to make sure we're all right in our personal self, in our own mind, our mental health and well-being, to make sure we're fine. Having the conversation with the families as well, it's really, really difficult. But I think at my stage now, I've grown into the job, and we just sort of have that conversation with another colleague and the relatives. Knowing the background of that patient and the relatives, we are able to have that conversation. We know who to contact. We know which of the relatives to speak to. And obviously, we know the wishes of our patients. So, for example, we have a patient who has a faith, you know, believes so much in his own faith, and he already had his own wishes on what to do when he's about to die, or how to have that conversation, who to have that conversation with. So we have all that information and which really, really helps. But the major one is for us, you know, looking after ourselves, undergoing those trainings, have from time to time speaking to people around our workforce, basically. So we're able to have that conversation with the relatives and the patients themselves. But that's the hardest part of the job, having to tell them we're stopping all treatments, and actually they have a few days or few months to live.
Yeah, thank you very much for that. And I'm sure some of you have heard the phrase, you can't give what you don't have. So, you know, especially we as carers who are supporting and caring for, you know, people with mental illnesses, we also have to make sure that we're in the right frame of mind to give back, you know. So also have to look after our own mental health and mental, you know, conditions as well, if we have any. So I wanted to ask Lydia, for instance, have you had any experience where someone has said something or done something that's appeared insensible in your opinion, and how, if you know, how did you deal with that, if you had any experience of such? Or did someone say something to you that at the time hit something that maybe they shouldn't have said at the time?
Yes, actually. Again, it was when I was very young, when I first came to the UK, I was at school, and I was one of 3 black children at school, and I was very good at sports. So I was good at I could do any sport, and I was very good, and I was always number 1. Then one of the girls told the teacher, saying that I was cheating. Then the teacher came to tell me that, oh, Lydia, your peer has said that you're cheating. I'm like, what do you mean I'm cheating? I'm not cheating. He's like, she said that because I'm African, that's why I run very fast. Because I'm African, that's why I throw javelin, because I chase animals. It's a very racist statement, to a point where I was about 8 years old, maybe 8. Yeah, I think I was probably 7 or 8. I didn't understand, but I was upset, and I cried heavily, even when I went home to tell my parents that, oh, the teacher told me that one of the students said that I was cheating. Then my mum obviously tried to scold me and tell me, no, you can't be cheating, you shouldn't be cheating. But only to find out that it was because of my background. And a lot of children, they'll say racist comments without even realizing that it's actually a racist comment. So I cried a little, but my dad always used to tell me, Lilia, because you are doing something really well, do it better the next time. So my dad was very encouraging. My dad was always like, next time I want you to beat them 10 times hard. So that made me feel better. It made me feel like, you know what, I'm actually not cheating. It's just where I come from. And sometimes with a lot of people, even children, especially children, it's lack of understanding. It's lack of knowledge. They say things because that's how they were raised up. So I can be upset, but it shouldn't stop me from continuing to move on. And I was only young, so I couldn't really explain to them or tell them how to do things.
Wow, that must have been very difficult, especially at a very young age. What about you, Tosin? Have you had any experience of such, especially in times of bereavement or loss, or when you're feeling very down or low?
No, I don't think I've had anyone say something to me that I found inappropriate, just because of the situation that we are in right now. So I was not even open to seeing people or having people say something that is inappropriate. And to be honest, at that time, if anyone even said anything to me, I probably would not have even taken it seriously, because I was just almost detached from my emotions. So I was like, okay, if you feel that way, that's up to you. But I didn't have anyone say anything to me. No.
Great. Thanks, Tosin. Very quickly, Gloria, are you still on?
Yeah, I'm still here, but I can't hear. Can you?
I think we can hear you. It's so much better now. Can you speak again?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, so much better. Thanks, Gloria. Great. So we've just heard from Lydia and Tosin, but I wanted to ask you very quickly, what advice would you give to people on what things to say and things not to say when someone's going through a difficult time, maybe loss, or if they have a issue with their mental health or a mental illness? Oh, we've lost you again, Gloria.
Hello, can you hear me now?
Yeah, if you could not move and just stay where you are, it would be great.
Yeah, I'm not moving. I think it's important.
Oh, we've lost you again, Gloria. Just about. Are you able to move a bit more towards your...
Okay, we'll try this again. Is that better?
Better.
Better, yeah? Okay. Can you repeat your question?
Yeah, so I said, do you have any advice on what can people say or not say to somebody who's experienced loss, or somebody who is in a state of, anyone with a mental condition? What do you say to someone, or what do you not say to someone who is mentally ill?
Yeah, I mean, there's so many examples of things that I would like to focus on listening and support. Sometimes it's what they do, it's allowing themselves. Never say you understand if you like. Like, you may be able to sympathize, but understanding what's happening, experience how that person's feeling, would be very hard. Also, I think it's important to remember that, the fact that somebody is not different enough in their right state that they can. So really listen, take time, take time to allow that person to when they can. Yeah, I think every individual is different, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Ask the person to maybe even write things down, so where, especially when you're working with children. I think it starts, some of the mental health can start quite young as well. And I think we've touched a lot on adults. We never really focus on where the children or young adults who are suffering or accessing their things. Or struggling mentally. So I believe that, we can put words right down, taking them away from the judging power. So yeah, I think it varies. It's a very broad question. It really varies.
So, thanks, Gloria. You're still a bit low, but I caught one or two things from what you were trying to say. You said that people should take the time to listen. And I think this can be the one that's very most difficult, because sometimes we feel the need to always say something when someone's, in that state. But actually, sometimes they just need someone who can just listen to them, a shoulder to lean on. So sometimes it's better to not say anything than to feel the need to say something. So thank you very much for that. For those watching online also, you can ask your questions using Slido, using the code 51241, or you can type your questions in the live chat and we'll pick it up from there. Okay, so I've got a few myths and facts, so statements from people and what they've said, and I'm just going to read them out and we'll discuss whether or not you think these statements are true or untrue. And I think especially in the black community, it's important that we address these statements. So first is, personality weakness or character flaws cause mental health problems. People with mental health problems can snap out of it if they try hard enough. So Sumba, what do you think about that? Do you want to read it again?
Yeah, I do have a question.
Right.
Well, for me, I'll say personal weakness or your character, that's not mental illness or mental health problems. Your character is just your outward actions. So, for example, if I speak very loudly or I raise my hands when I'm talking, that doesn't mean I have mental health weakness, or maybe I have mental health problems. But you trying to snap out of it, the first thing you need to know is you recognizing there's a problem there, and recognizing the issue itself and communicating it and speaking out to seek help. Then getting that help will get you somewhere. But your character and your weakness is not classed as mental health problems.
Yeah. What do you think about that, Jerome? So people who think people who have mental illnesses are weak, or it's because they have a weakness in their character flaws. What do you think about that statement?
No, that's obviously very wrong, because there's no relationship between those things. But like she has said, when you snap, it could be a sign, early stage sign, that we should not overlook if it keeps happening, right? So, but your character, your flaws, your weakness have nothing to do with your mental health condition.
Yeah, correct. So often what we find is that if you come from a community, for instance, where there's not much education around mental health or mental illness, people with mental illnesses are usually looked down upon. And so hence why this is one of the reasons why people don't usually come out with their mental illness, because they're afraid that, they might be judged, or they might be seen as weak, particularly the men, or they might be seen as weak, so they can't come out to seek for help. And so all the time, it's, I have to deal with this on my own, even when sometimes it seems that they're struggling. So it's not because they're weak in their character, but it's because they have an illness that needs to be treated. Okay, so moving on, our next statement is, children don't experience mental health problems. Children don't experience mental health problems. What do you think about that, Symbol?
That's actually wrong. Children can experience mental health problems. And that's why, as a parent, you have to have a relationship with your child or your children. And if you've got more than one, you need to treat each child as an individual, understanding their ways, coming down to their level, and having a conversation from time to time and not letting anything get in the way of your relationship with your child. So with the mental health problems with the children, I think because of your relationship, when your children start to bring out different behaviors that looks fearful, or whether you don't have an understanding, like we've been saying all along, you need to communicate it, seek for help, speak to someone. Don't be too ashamed to say anything to someone you can trust, because I think we Black communities, one of our downfall is not communicating out there enough. We don't speak out. We're too ashamed to, seek advice or go somewhere, because we're always thinking about the whys, the when, the where. People are looking at me, what will they say? We always think about other people and not think about ourselves. So I've met with a family who said their 10-year-old was bedwetting, which is one of the signs. And it can necessarily not be a sign and symptom, but that's not your child. That's not what they do. Like when they're not eating well, when they're withdrawn, or, they're very moody, they're quite unkempt. Those are one of the signs of the mental health problems. It might not necessarily be mental health problems. It might just be the child undergoing some issues at school. So, yes, children can undergo mental health problems as low as age 9, even age 6, 7. We did, from one of the datas now, actually in England, it does say 1 in every 8 child has mental health problems. And it does digress into something different if it's not recognized or if you don't seek help early. So yes, children can undergo mental health problems. Yes, we do need to speak out. Yes, we do need to seek help. We need to communicate it out there, and we need to start to seek information ourselves. There are so many informations out there, resources that we could get. Because I know I'm from a Black background, but I know we Black communities, we like things very quick. We don't like to source for information because we think it's taking our time. Some people would rather, spend their time on Netflix than get this information. So we need to be, sourcing information. We need to be reading it. We need to be communicating it. I met a parent, because of a child, she's undergoing some trainings just to seek the advice, to have the knowledge, how to deal with the problems with her children. So we need to be doing, more as an individual, as a community. But the most important thing is having that communication and seeking for help. There are a lot of resources out there. We have a few resources here. So I think after the program, we might have to add the link to the program at the end of the show for people to, it's very confidential. They do maintain confidentiality with all these organizations. It could be virtual. There are some people that, they don't want a face-to-face. Yeah. They'll talk to you over the phone. Sometimes they don't even really want to know your name, but they're there to advise you, to tell you what to do, where to go to, who to talk to. Just information and meeting other parents whose children have mental illness, just having that communication and, sometimes communicating with other people who has undergone that problem, they're able to come out of their own problems as well, and giving them, more understanding on a social level. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think what you said is very important because more so we have lots of units and lots of institutions for children as young as 9 coming out with a mental health illness. And sometimes these factors are normally factors that could have been spotted earlier on in childhood, but obviously with no education and with people not knowing how to spot these signs or symptoms, it's very difficult for the children to get help. And then when they grow older, it becomes a lot more difficult. But the signs have always been there. Some of the risk factors could also be things that you could have tackled in your family. So children experiencing or witnessing abuse in the home could be one of them. Trauma, so a child who may not have got over the loss of a parent, a child who has been bullied for an extensive period of time, a child who has no family, who has been in a foster home for a very long period of time, or who has been sort of like ripped away from their parents for whatever reason. It could be, other genetic factors or, risk factors that include a family history of whatever illness it is. I think it's important to not overlook these factors. And if your child is sort of like displaying symptoms or signs that's not usually the norm, or that tells you that something is wrong, it's better to seek help and pursue it and not to ignore it, particularly in very, very serious situations where a child starts experiencing symptoms, that suggest, psychosis, or, they're hallucinating. I've seen, instances where families don't believe that there's anything like schizophrenia, or a child can hallucinate, and so they sort of like ignore it or tag it to be something else. And many years down the line, they more or less live that way because it's so embedded in them that it's very difficult to then get the treatment that they need. Why? Because it's been left for an extensive amount of time, and it's really, 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 really sad. So in our community, I feel like it's important that we speak up, and if you see anything that's not right, then it's better to follow your gut feeling and follow these things through. So I've got one more, and I would like Jerome to sort of like answer that. So the next statement is, prevention works. It is possible to take precautionary measures to prevent or reduce the risk that you develop a mental illness.
Yeah, definitely prevention works. Before, you made mention of hereditary family history. Like someone said, mental illness is there, but don't trigger it. You need to be able to see those triggers and know exactly what to do. Like I said before, if it becomes acute, it becomes very difficult for you to reverse. So the ability for us to learn, to know how to identify those triggers is very important for us. Those negative symptoms you mentioned, he loves playing football. That child is no longer playing football. He tells you, Mommy, I don't want to play football today. The following day, the same thing. Don't ignore it. There must be something. It could be abuse. Maybe somebody is doing something in the football pitch to him or something. You need to investigate, find out. Let that child trust you. That relationship is very key. So once that situation becomes, you have those things and you are attacking them, trying to address them at the initial level, we can prevent it, and let us not go to the extent of taking antipsychotic drugs, going about, CBT, the cognitive behavioral therapy and all that. Though it still works as a point, but we don't need to get to that stage.
Yeah. Particularly in schools, because a lot of the time, your children spend probably most of the time in school. So if your child is always being tagged as naughty, then that's probably another warning sign that you need to look at. And I think that's also something that we need to explore within the school community as well. There are no...
Sorry, before we go on, I was just going to contribute to what Jerome said about our children. There is also one thing with the Black community. Don't take me wrong on this, everybody. This is just my own perspective about this. I feel we really, 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 in our community, we need to respect our children as well. We believe where we've come from, children have to respect their parents. Yes, they have to. And I'm totally 100% on that. But I think we also need to respect our children as well, because in some areas, actually, nobody take me, on that. It's just my own perspective. In some areas, when the parents are talking, the children mustn't talk, or when there is an issue in the family that needs to progress or digress, they don't even involve the children. So I think one of the major issues in the Black community is not respecting the children. That makes the children really scared to have communication with their parents, and it does affect the relationship, you knowing what your child does or what they don't do, because sometimes the children will say, well, every time I want to speak, my mom will tell me to shut up. So they get scared to come and have that conversation. And an example was, my oldest son, we were going out the other day and we met another mother. She's black. I have to say that for you to have an understanding of this conversation, and my son had his hand round my shoulder. My son's quite taller than me because he's 14. And, the woman said, oh, she called my son's name. Is that your mom? And my son looked at me and jokingly said, no, this is my sister. And her son, that's the woman that asked whether I was his mother, her son said, oh no, I've always seen you with that woman. I thought she was your carer. Wow. And the mother slapped her son. So I had to tell her son to walk away, and I went across and said, don't do that. There was no need to slap your son for thinking I was his carer. One, he saw the way me and my son was having a conversation. He saw the way he had his hand round my shoulder. He saw the level of the communication. He didn't know it was a question. He asked because he didn't know. And all you needed to say was, that's his mom. It wasn't being disrespectful. But it's just, that's how we sort of sometimes have relationships with our children. And I feel the respect, it comes along, a long way. And it might be very controversial because sometimes in this part of the world, they'll say, no, you don't give them the chance to speak too much. No, but it does, because in the recent times, we've actually seen kids being, coming into hospital just because something's changed in the family, and all that's happened was they've not had that conversation with the child, and it's just gone, led to something else because the parents are not, they're not having that close contact with the children, and the children are quite scared to speak to the parents. Then they go to school, they get close to their teachers, they're having that conversation at school. They should have been picked up at home. So, we just need to really, really have a relationship with our children, let them come and tell us anything, anytime. Just having that relationship with them to be able to communicate a lot. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much. So there are no questions in the chat, so our session's over, but I would like to ask Gloria. Gloria, can you say something? I need to know if we can hear you. Just one question I need to ask you. So a lot of the time you hear, how can I tell I'm depressed? What is the difference between being sad and being depressed? So is it something that you can answer, Gloria, if we can hear you?
What is the difference between being sad and being depressed? So is it something that you can answer, Gloria, if we can hear you?
Gloria, can you hear? No?
Can you hear me?
No. Sorry. So, okay, so I'm so sorry, Gloria. It didn't go as expected today, technical issues. Okay, so very quickly, can I just say that, bereavement is a natural process that we all go through. And apart from that, we all have experiences or challenges that make us feel sad, that make us cry, that make us angry, that make us upset, that make us happy. And these are normal emotions that we feel in daily life. And sometimes part of your mental and emotional well-being is being able to cope with these and being able to sort of like act on these and cope on it on your own. But if you're having issues with coping on your own and it's leading to a more serious issue than you can handle, and it's happening for a prolonged period of time, then it's time that you get and seek help from a professional, okay? Right, so we've come to the end of our session now. I want to thank our viewers for tuning in. I want to thank the people that I have on the panel with me, the professionals that we have on. Thanks for the insight and your presence on here. I really appreciate. I also want to thank Lydia and Tosin for coming to share the story with us. That was very brave, and I really, really do appreciate. And I hope this has really, really helped. For our viewers also, I hope we've been able to answer some of the questions that you've had. Look out on the chat, as we might be putting a link there that can help those who want to seek support, or if you have any questions, post this then feel free to put on the group chat. I also want to thank CRA Nottingham, VoxNet Solution, and the National Community Lottery Fund. And also just to say this is our last session for the year. So with that being said, I want to wish everyone a Merry Christmas. And until I see you next year, stay blessed. Thank you.